Before I was a priest, back when I was a teacher, I was at my Catholic school outside of Albany, St. Pius X, when the school had invited the head of Catholic Relief Services to come and talk to all of the students. She was talking to the leaders of state government and happened to be in town for an afternoon, so they snatched her. Which is a big deal, because that's one of the biggest social service relief agencies in the world. They have offices in virtually every country. And that's why it's Catholic Relief Services that's usually among the first on the scene of any disaster. If something terrible happens in, say, Sri Lanka, they're already there. They have an office in Sri Lanka. And so they're on the scene right away while everyone else is trying to figure out how to get a flight there. So she was talking about a lot of the programs they were working on at that time, and this is 15 years ago. So she was talking about some of the groundbreaking work they were doing in Iran and in Afghanistan. And then she had a question and answer period, and one of the kids raised his hand, one of the middle schoolers. And I have a feeling that what he wanted to do was show off how much he knew about the world through his social studies class. I have a feeling he might have been showing off for Mr. Flanagan, but I'll never know. What he said was this: Afghanistan and Iran, he said, aren't those countries that are Muslim? He said, why are you helping them if they're Muslim? And she said, that's a great question. She said, we don't help people because they're Catholic. We help them because we're Catholic. This is how Jesus describes our mission in the gospel today. He looks at the crowds with love. He looks at them through the lens of love. He doesn't look at them through the lens of disgust or judgment. And he loves them not because they're particularly good, but because when he looks at them, he sees sheep without a shepherd. He doesn't see a bunch of troublemakers. He sees sheep that are lacking a shepherd. He doesn't help them because they're especially godly, but because he is. That's one of the interesting lines in the second reading. It says, St. Paul is writing and says, Jesus helped us when we were so ungodly. That's his word, ungodly. And then he says, living and dying for us the way he did would still have been unimaginable, still the greatest gift ever, if we had been like living saints, if we were these incredible people who just deserved a chance. If we were godly, we might have understood why he made such an effort. But we weren't, he says. We were acting lousy. So Jesus is showing that if you want to be a part of the solution, you can't turn away. If you want to be a healing force, you have to go to where the injury is, where the hurt is. You can't go in the other direction. We're not called to help other people because they're so Catholic, but because we are. I was an exchange student in the Up With People program about 25 years ago, and I remember a very strange trip I had to take one time. I had been home for Christmas break visiting my parents in Rochester, where I'll go this afternoon for Father's Day to see my dad. And I was going to Finland to meet up with the group in Helsinki. So Finland is all the way over the Atlantic Ocean, thousands of miles. But in order to get there, my first flight from Rochester was to Detroit, straight west. I had to go west in order to go east. I had to go to Detroit in order to get across the ocean. And Pope Francis says those moments happen for Christians all the time. He says you sometimes have to walk a distance in the wrong direction with someone in order to help to get to where you want to go. Interesting thought. He says the reason for this is that we are called to accompany people on their journey. And he said that the word accompaniment is one of his favorite words. He said it's one of the most beautiful words in any language it's translated into. Accompaniment. You accompany people on the journey. He said our job is to walk with each other in the direction of home. But you're going to meet with people who are walking in a direction already. And you don't have the power or the authority to say, stop, halt, come here. You, come here. Who's going to do that? Imagine, citizen's arrest, come here. It's not going to work. That would never work. It would be nice if it would, but that's not how life is. No one's going to follow us. And so we have to understand that if they're already going in a direction, you have to walk with them in that direction. And it might not feel good. It might feel really awkward. But how in the world are you going to get close enough to talk to them if you don't draw close to them and accompany them on the journey? One of the perennial rules of Christianity is that our faith grows by attraction, not by promotion. Christianity does not grow when it's advertised as a great deal. We can't give out coupons to become Christian. Because if people come here because they saw the ad, but they don't like what they experience, they won't stay. You might get an ad for a new restaurant that's opening up. Maybe there's even $1 off if you mention this ad. But if you go there and the food isn't any good, you're never going to go back. So it's not promoting this faith that makes it grow. It's by living in a way that people want to know, what is going on with her? She's so alive. Look at her. I love being around her. How can she be so happy in such gloomy times? What is it about her? We have to help them want what we have, not because we're advertising it, not because we're giving out coupons, but because it's the most natural thing to want to be around people who are fully alive and facing challenges with grace. This is what fathers learn as they go through their time in fatherhood. Fathers are masters of this because you may see exactly why your kid is on the wrong track, but you can't tell them all in one conversation. Sometimes fathers make the mistake of thinking, I'm just going to tell this kid what they need to hear and I'm going to tell them right now. And most of those fathers wind up leaving frustrated and defeated because it won't work. The best fathers know you can't say everything in one conversation. You have to say it little bit by little bit. You have to gauge where they are. How much can they take today? What are they willing to hear right now? What can I tell them, and what do I need to hold for later? Because it won't work. It would be like overwatering a plant and watching all the water soak out of the bottom of the pot. A wise father knows I have to tell them just enough for today, just enough for whatever openness they have right now. And Jesus says the same. Pope Francis says that it is not enough for us to say, let's open the doors of our church and let everyone in, and then go out and say, come on in, everybody, it's open. That's not enough, he says, because that's not accompanying them. They're already out there. They're not in here. So opening the doors to them is a good first step, but you've got to go through those doors, he says, and walk with them, be with them, help them to know that you care. And he has some beautiful images about this too. He says, you could never take someone's vitals at a distance. How are you going to put the blood pressure cuff on them? You can't take someone's temperature from a distance. You have to come up close. And the same thing is true with someone's story. The best parts of someone's story are going to be said in a very low voice. They're not going to shout them. They're going to tell you in a very low voice. They're going to say, I haven't told many people this, but you've got to be close for that. You've got to be walking with them. So this week we are being given a little opportunity for a check-in with ourselves. what would people say behind my back about the way I communicate my faith? What would my adult children say about the way I communicate faith to them? Would they say that I do it by attraction? Or maybe by promotion? What would they say about the way that I live in such a way as to make them want to be part of the path that I'm on? Would you be willing to walk with someone in an uncomfortable direction just so you could spend time with them? Would you be willing to go with them for a little while toward Detroit when you really want to go is to Helsinki? Are you open to that kind of accompaniment? Jesus says, I'm sending you forth on a mission of love. And I want you to go with joy in your heart. And I'm not sending you because all of those people out there are so Christian. I'm sending you because you are